have a desire to take your conversation to its highest potential? If you do, hop on over to my website and check out the School of Reform. Yes, school is most definitely in. Knowing Bible is the course that I am now offering to take your conversation to its next level. Grow closer not simply with the philosophy that is within the Bible, grow closer not simply with the devotional character of the living God, but grow closer with yourself also. So head on over to my website, check out the School of Reform, and check out Knowing Bible. This is a course for the learner that wants to make their life, both personal and devotional, more full. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday and welcome back. But before I begin, I want to give another shout out to Howard Nosick. It is easy to look at success and say, why not me? But to choose God first, that is the challenge in this life. HN, Howard Nosick, clear words and to the point, and that absolutely fit into what I have been bringing up in the past couple of weeks. The subject of emptiness, the subject of the void, the subject of choosing what to choose. Is it going to be what is familiar in our experience, or is it going to be what is unfamiliar in our experience to gain familiarity, not for us, our human being, but to initiate a separation between our human being and the being of our conversation? And that was one of the points that was brought up, is that the faith that we have, we don't necessarily possess it. We didn't give it to ourselves. We didn't control when we got it. We didn't control what happened. Time, chance, opportunity allowed us to hear something, to feel something, to become nostalgic about something that put us in a place of acceptance. And that place of acceptance was an acceptance not to any idea. We knew no idea. The only thing we knew was that the experience that we're living is not as full as we know it as it should be. And so it was the experience that we thought was lacking that led us to the scriptures. So when you think about that, you think about the idea or the aspect of consciousness, because our faith is given to us while we are in an unconscious state. Meanwhile, what is within us is very conscious and aware to what we need, even though we don't know it yet. And that's the tricky part, but that's the fun part of the experience. Fun part of the experience is the challenge of going through a conscious state to become unconscious enough so that our faith can become conscious within its own self. And that's the cat and mouse game of being able to put our human being aside and understanding the experience that we are going through is not for our human being essentially, but again, for the being of our conversation. And for the being of our conversation, that involves wisdom, which is the verse I'm highlighting. The individual that cares enough for wisdom will separate themselves, this is Proverbs 18:1, to the point where they can intermeddle and handle all things. And this isn't all things related to all things in the world. The Bible, as we are in it, is its own world. So the all things are related to what's within the Bible. And that means taking out prejudice, taking out bias, taking out opinion, taking out all kind of theory that we possess, and just approaching it, keyword from before, empty for the purpose of creation. So it's conscious awareness for creation. And even though we physically are going through that, even though we physically are passing through an experience that our human being can register as being real, in a sense, everything's for our devotional conversations consciousness. When you hear verses like, um, be ye holy in all manner of things in your conversations, because even he said, be ye holy for I am holy. That's First Peter. When you hear things like after Peter gets through his lecture on what he's expected to take place at the end of time, when he finishes that in Second Peter, he says, well, what kind of persons ought we to be in all manner of godliness and conversation? So to the minds back then, the main issue was the condition of the conversation. The conversation in Paul to the Philippians, even now is our conversation in heaven. Meaning, even though we're physically here, our conversation is transcending where we are. It's all about conversation to the Bible. And conversation meaning how one individual, the relationship, is in discourse with its own belief. That's our conversation. Putting that simply, we have conversations with food, specific foods that we like. This is what we choose to hold ourselves around into. Sports teams. We have a conversation with a specific sports team. Certain individual characters that we keep around us and that we do not associate with. It's our behavior in the environment that we are in that is our conversation. So our behavior in the Bible's environment, whether we are in an organized situation or private, either alone or carrying the church within out into the public world, it is all how our conversation reflects our relationship with the environment within the Bible. Now, we have a conversation that is given to us, but once it is given to us, that conversation has the ability to transform into a devotional conversation. And I like to choose this term devotional because when you think about devotion, you think about something that you are applying yourself to, something you're devoted to, strictly for, and it's active. It is an active foring. I stay making up words. That's okay. I like foring, an active foring for a particular environment and thought to go with that environment within the Bible. So from Genesis to the end, the Bible's main concern is the condition of our conversations, thoughts, and feelings, and how our conversation is able to transition itself into a personal devotional conversation where we are benefited, our human being, and also in connection with the mind governing this, the living God, and also for the people around us. So the full scope here isn't just us in this experience. The full scope here is people outside of us, our relationship with the living God, our relationship with the word within the Bible, and then our relationship with that relationship connected to the experience that we're having. And when I bring up the subject of awareness or void or emptiness or creation, to the Bible's mind, all of that is for wisdom. It's for wisdom that through our experience we can apply to. We don't have to rely on something that we hold dear to place us in remembrance of a belief that we have. We don't have to um, rely on something that we have written down somewhere. The main point in Proverbs 3 is that remember my words and keep my commandments. They will add length of days to you, and also they will be engraved and written within your heart. The book of Ezekiel, I believe chapter 36. I will give you a new spirit and a new heart that you will be able to walk. The aspect of renewal for the conversation first, so that the human being can find benefit afterward. That's the Bible's way of saying your faith needs to become conscious, and your faith needs to become aware that it has its own thoughts and that it has its own feelings. And there's really no way that we can do that unless we, execute for our conversation's sake the words. And that's not attractive. that's that's not attractive. It's not attractive because we are trained to believe that our religion has to be physical. The physical stuff is what makes our religion real to us. So we have things that we wear, we have a place to go that we can believe God is there or think God is there. We can have things that we wear that we can think God is seeing this and I'm empowered by what I'm wearing. We have things we can hear, things we can read, things we can do. And it all has to do with a stimulus back to our physical. But I always like to say, and I always go back to this verse in John 4:24, that God is a spirit. And if we're going to hold the Bible accountable and let the Bible be true, then we can't get mad when we read the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. In this mountain, you will no longer worship the Father. And that was a message concerning what the man taught, which was a personal inward movement upward. Which is why Paul counseled, if you are risen, don't keep your mind on things that are below, earthly. Set your mind higher on things where Christ resides at the right hand of the Father. And that's the experience last time we were here. Lifestyle. The lifestyle that Paul was initiating. Paul was initiating a lifestyle where the individual was taking accountability and responsibility for their conversation's growth and development. And that involves a mental task. Cutting off the physical stuff and allowing what is within to become the guide. In becoming the guide, sending the mind upwards for the purpose of receiving the level of consciousness that it needs, to have the level of wisdom that it needs, to have the devotional conversation we're supposed to have, for the purpose of creation. And it's really ridiculous when you think about it because, well, I think that it makes sense because to me, jumping into the Bible, again, I'm always asked, where did I start? And then I always answer Ezekiel 18. And Ezekiel 18 is a chapter that is figurative language, and it has the most foul language. Like one of the most foul chapters. It's talking about the sins of the father, will not pass to the sins of the son. Israel, why will you die? Reform yourself. It's talking about the character of the people of God as being worth a menstruous cloth. So when I'm asked where did I begin, that's where my experience had me begin at that chapter. Because it was in this chapter that I got to understand how the Bible thinks, how the Bible speaks, how the Bible uses the most foul language to depict the type of conversation the people professing it has, and how it does so that the reader can know what not to do. The Bible loves to give what to do, what not to do first. So everything that the Bible gives on the surface, it's what not to do. It begins with Eden. The pair in Eden took the tree to be a law for their righteousness. This is what not to do. To take any religious law or object of affection in a religious or spiritual sense to be our shortcut to quote unquote righteousness. And so hereafter, you have this scheme initiated from Eden all throughout. until you get to Galatians 3:13, where it says, Christ hath redeemed us from the law. So again, Paul's teaching there, the law that he's in reference of, is the law of religious philosophy, which is another thing. But that was what was started in Eden. And with that started in Eden, that moved as what not to do until you get to the crucifixion. And then the figurative illustration that Paul breaks down is that this is not what to do. Now we know what to do with this body crucified. And symbolizing what Paul allows us to know is the quote unquote law. So the Bible gives on the surface, first off, what not to do and what's not acceptable so that we can take knowledge of it, put it into our own experience, gain wisdom from it, and that's how our faith gets consciousness. And so Ezekiel 18 for me was the opportunity for me to take what I have been or what is traditionally heard or understood and to rationalize it and to dig in deep, because the language there, as foul as it is, there's a lot of Hebrew in there. And so I had to do a lot of research and digging just to make sense of what was being said and to get an idea of who the voice was that was speaking, what the character of that voice was, and what was my responsibility to all of that. Because when this happened for me, it was 2011. So being in 2011, what does the menstruous cloth mean to someone in 2011? And to someone who isn't living in an age where that's relevant, and to a male. So there's a lot of checking that the Bible puts you through, and that adds to the level or the air of consciousness. And for the sake of wisdom, and for the preparation of having a devotional conversation that is worth a while to us personally, and is also, remarkable and intended by for our Creator. So that was on my heart, and I put Howard's quote there. I wanted to just say that because out of the emails that were sent, that one stuck out because it's about success, but not according to what we imagine it to be. Success to us looks, I know to me, is a very, very different look than what it may be to another or what it may be to the Creator. So success, putting success and learning the success of the Creator to the point where we can put ourselves aside and let that be our success. Reminds me of, I'm not thy will, but thy will be done. Or remove this cup from me, nevertheless, let thy will be done. Or I have my Father's meat. I have eaten. I'm here to do his will. It's learning what that will is and becoming mindful enough to take ourselves out of the business, out of the classroom, out of the experience, and allowing what is within us to be what the business is, to be what the classroom is, to be what the experience is. Because if God is spirit, what our human being is and the things that we do with our human being should really not connect at all. Because what can we offer, or what can our flesh have within it that can satisfy what is spirit? I would like to think absolutely nothing. And the minds within the Bible do think absolutely nothing. Created me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me, Psalm 51. The renewal or the regeneration of the spirit of the mind conversations, spirit of the mind, is the Bible's main concern. And for that main concern to take place, the responsibility falls on us, which is why it matters to take creation and the void and the emptiness and all of those illustrations into consideration. Because when end of the day, when we go to sleep, it's just us and our thoughts. When we wake up in the morning, look in that mirror, still, it's us, our thoughts, and now a face. We're traveling throughout this day from the time we wake up to the time we fall back down, and within us, there's a lot going on. And the Bible's remedy to the a lot that's going on is bringing awareness and a very high level of consistent and temperate consciousness to our personal devotional conversation. Because we rely so much on our faith, we rely so much on our spiritual side. Everything that we do in a natural sense, we're either elated or insulted, and it's our spiritual side that feels it. It goes in past the human and into the spiritual, because that's just how we're designed. The Bible wants us to get a check on that, getting a check on that, being able to have a mind to divide the human from the devotional. Being able to do that, we can then, make sense of both, to where we can put that wall, that dividing wall, back down, and then have them marry. And that's where I'm at in my shell justification is, although there's a lot of philosophy in there, the whole point is marriage. The whole point is the marriage of the human being, the being of the human, to the being of the devotional conversation, to make the life that much more just beautiful. So I'll end on that note and take that thought from now to the rest of the week is everything that we're going through. It is to marry what is within us to what is within us. So take that thought and take care for now.